Hello, and welcome to the English Phrases Hub podcast. I'm Emma, and I'm here with my awesome co-host, Jake.
Hey there, listeners. I'm Jake. Thanks for joining us today. Emma, I am so excited for today's episode. It's all about one of my favorite topics in language learning.
Mine too. Today, we're diving into Discover the Listening Strategies for Better English Learning. So if you're learning English, whether you're a beginner or advanced, we've got some great tips to help you understand spoken English better.
That's right. We'll cover a bunch of practical listening strategies. I think we have 10 lined up, right?
Yup, around 10 strategies, including things like chunking, shadowing, using subtitles, predictive listening, and a lot more. And don't worry, we'll explain what all of those fancy terms mean in a fun, simple way. Plus, you know us, we'll throw in a touch of humor along the way. Learning should be fun.
Absolutely. Whether you're just starting out with English or you're preparing for advanced exams, these techniques can make a huge difference. I remember when I started learning Spanish, I was lost in conversations until I tried some of these strategies.
That's a great point. We're not just hosts, we've been language learners ourselves, so we know the struggle. All right, let's get started with our first listening strategy.
First up, chunking. Now, chunking might sound like what happens when I eat ice cream too fast. Chunky monkey, anyone?
Not that kind of chunk, Jake. In language learning, chunking means breaking what you hear into phrases or chunks of words, rather than trying to catch one word at a time. It's a way to help your brain process English in meaningful blocks.
Right. Instead of hearing a rapid stream of words and panicking, you divide the sentence into smaller pieces that make sense, kind of like separating a big cake into bite-sized slices. Cake. Learning English is delicious.
Focus, Jake. For example, let's take the sentence, I'm going to the store to buy some milk. If you listen for each individual word, you might get hung up on a word you don't know or how fast it is. But if you chunk it, you can break it into pieces. I'm going to the store to buy some milk.
Exactly. 2 chunks, I'm going to the store and to buy some milk. Your brain can handle that much more easily than 7 separate words.
And chunking is great because native speakers actually speak in chunks. They naturally group words together, like going to the store, said quickly, almost like one phrase. If you train yourself to catch phrases, you'll understand sentences even when spoken fast.
Here's a quick exercise. I'll say a sentence and you try to chunk it, Emma. Ready?
Let's do it.
Learning English with podcasts is both fun and effective.
Okay, I'd chunk that as learning English with podcasts is both fun and effective. 4 chunks.
Great job. Notice I paused slightly at each break when I repeated it. Listeners, you can do this too. When you listen to English, maybe a YouTube video or our podcast, try to hear the small pauses or rhythm where words group naturally. Those are your chunks.
For beginners, start with short sentences or simple dialogues. Write them down and draw slashes between chunks. For more advanced learners, you can try chunking in real time as you listen to native-level content. It takes practice, but it really boosts comprehension.
And don't stress if you miss a word. If you get the chunk, you often get the meaning. Like maybe you missed the word milk in our example, but you caught buy something at the store, you can guess it's probably groceries, milk, etc.
Exactly. Chunking pairs well with using context, which we'll talk about a bit later. But the main idea, listen for groups of words, not just single words. It'll make understanding English much smoother.
And hopefully sweeter, like chunks of chocolate in your ice cream. Couldn't resist.
Oh, Jake. All right. I think that covers chunking. Ready to move on?
You bet. On to strategy number 2.
Our second strategy is shadowing. This is one of my personal favorites. Shadowing means listening to speech and repeating it immediately, like an echo or a shadow of the speaker.
It's basically you being the speaker's shadow. Imagine the speaker is Peter Pan and you're his shadow, trying to mimic everything he does. Shadowing minus the mischief, hopefully.
Shadowing is a fantastic exercise because it forces you to really listen. You have to pay super close attention to pronunciation, intonation, the up and down of the voice, and rhythm, so you can repeat it correctly. It's great for listening and speaking practice at the same time.
It might feel a bit weird at first, talking to your screen or your phone, but trust us, it works. For example, if you're watching an English video or listening to a podcast, you can try shadowing a few sentences. Just be sure to pause or choose something where the speaker leaves little gaps.
Actually, let's demonstrate a tiny example. I'll say a short phrase and you try to shadow me, Jake. Ready?
Ready, shadow mode on.
It's important to practice every day.
It's important to practice every day.
Perfect. You even matched my intonation. How did that feel?
I felt like your echo. Kind of fun. I have to really focus on every sound you made. I noticed the way you linked practice and every smoothly. And that's the point. When you shadow, you notice details in pronunciation that you might miss if you're just passively listening. It can improve your listening comprehension and your accent because you're training your mouth and ears at the same time.
Pro tip, start with something slow or with clear pronunciation. You could use educational videos where speakers articulate well, or even better, use the transcript or subtitle while shadowing if available, at least on your first try.
Yes, many learners use apps or YouTube for this. For instance, find an English learning video or even a scene from a TV show on YouTube. Slow it down to 0.75x speed if needed, listen and repeat right after each sentence. Then try it at normal speed.
You'll feel a bit like a parrot at first. Polly wants a cracker. But over time, you'll catch words faster and understand native speech much better.
One thing, don't worry if you can't shadow everything perfectly. Even catching and repeating 50% of it is good practice. You can always pause, rewind, and try again. The key is consistency and not being shy to speak up.
And if someone walks in while you're shadowing and wonders why you're talking to yourself, just tell them you're practicing your future voice acting career. Or better yet, invite them to join.
There you go. Make it a group activity. The bottom line, shadowing is a powerful way to sharpen your listening. It makes you actively engage with what you hear.
And honestly, it can be pretty fun, mimicking movie lines or your favorite actors. Just maybe don't shadow the bad words you hear in movies, shadow the good stuff. Good advice, Jake. All right, let's move on to our next strategy. Strategy number 3 is using subtitles or transcripts while listening. This one's a bit controversial in the language learning world. Some people swear by subtitles, others say turn them off. So what's our take?
I'd say use subtitles wisely. For beginners, subtitles in English, not your native language, can be incredibly helpful. They let you read along while you listen, which can help you match spoken words to written words. It's like training wheels on a bicycle.
Exactly. If you're a beginner or watching content that's above your level, turning on English subtitles can help you not miss important info. For example, maybe you're watching an English YouTube lesson or a TV show. With subtitles, you'll catch new vocabulary and see spelling.
And even for intermediate learners, subtitles or transcripts can be useful for studying. One technique, first listen without subtitles and see how much you understand. Then listen again with subtitles or read the transcript to catch what you missed.
Yes, that way you get the best of both. You challenge your ears, and then you verify with text. For instance, say I listened to a news podcast, and I understood roughly 70%. Later, I read the transcript and find I missed a phrase like economic downturn. Seeing it written, I go, aha, that's what they said.
A quick example. Let's imagine a short clip. No subtitles first. The scientists revolutionized the field with their discovery. Now, if I'm listening and I'm not sure what that long word was, something like what? I might be lost. Then I check subtitles or transcript and see the word revolutionized.
Right. And then you might think, oh, I know the word revolution. Maybe revolutionized means to completely change something. You've learned a new word, and next time you hear it, you'll recognize it.
However, here's a caution. Try not to become too dependent on subtitles. If you always watch with subtitles on, you might find that the minute they're off, you feel lost again. It's like always using those training wheels and never taking them off.
Exactly. As you get more advanced, challenge yourself to go without subtitles more often. Maybe turn them off for easier content, or switch to English subtitles if you were using your native language subtitles before.
Another tip, there are tools and browser extensions out there that let you display subtitles in 2 languages at once, or click a word to translate it. Those can be useful for learning, but again, balance is key.
Also, consider using transcripts after listening. For example, many podcasts, including ours, have transcripts. You could listen to an episode, then read the transcript to fill in gaps in your understanding, and even highlight words to look up later.
I used to print out song lyrics and read them while listening. It helped me finally figure out those mumbled lines in pop songs that I could never catch. Blah, blah, like a broken straw. Wait, those weren't the lyrics.
Let me guess, you learned the real lyrics after seeing them written?
Yes, and I was way off. The real line was like a rolling stone, not broken straw. Who knew?
That's a great example of how reading along can correct misunderstandings. So, to sum up, use subtitles or transcripts as a learning tool. They're especially great for discovering new vocabulary and training your ear, but also practice without them to build your independent listening skills.
And if you catch yourself only reading and not listening, maybe hit that hide subtitles button for a while and test your ears. Remember, the goal is to understand the spoken English in real time eventually.
Well said. Ready for the next strategy?
Yup, this next one is a fun mental exercise. Strategy 4 is predictive listening, essentially guessing what comes next while you listen. Now, you might already do this in your native language without thinking about it. It's like being a fortune teller for conversations.
I predict you will love this technique.
But seriously, predictive listening means using context clues and your knowledge of language patterns to anticipate what the speaker is going to say or the general direction of the talk.
Why do this? Well, it keeps you actively engaged and helps you not miss information. If you're anticipating, you're less likely to be caught off guard. And if you guess right, it boosts your confidence. If you guess wrong, it can actually highlight where you need to pay more attention.
Let's try a simple example. If I start a sentence with, "Today, I want to talk about the 3 main reasons," what do you predict will come next?
I'd expect you to list something, like first reason, second reason, third reason. My brain is already getting ready to hear a list of 3 things.
Exactly. Certain phrases set you up to predict what's next. First of all usually means a sequence will follow. Secondly, thirdly, and so on. If someone asks, "Why did?" you can predict they're expecting a reason or explanation in the answer.
Another example, say you're listening to a story and you hear, "Suddenly, the door creaked open," and you might predict that something or someone surprising enters, because that's a common pattern in stories.
In everyday conversations, you do it too. Like if you hear, "Can you tell me the directions to," you can guess the person is asking for a location or how to go somewhere. Even if you didn't catch the place name, you know they're asking for directions.
This skill is super useful in tests like IELTS or TOEFL listening as well, where you can often guess what type of information is coming, a number, a name, etc., from the question prompts. But for daily listening, it just means staying on your toes.
One way to practice predictive listening is to listen to short audio clips or dialogues and pause before something happens. Then think, what do I think they'll say next? For beginners, this might be predicting a single word or an answer. For advanced folks, you might predict the next sentence or idea.
Want to try a quick, fun predictive game here?
Sure, I'll start a sentence and you finish it with a logical ending. Ready? If you practice listening every day for a month, I predict that...
Or maybe you'll start dreaming in English. Both could be true.
Great predictions. My crystal ball says consistent practice definitely leads to progress. The point is, by guessing what comes next, you stay engaged. And even if your prediction is a little silly, like dreaming in English, it makes the activity more fun and keeps your brain active.
Also, when you guess wrong, pay attention to why. Did you mishear something earlier? Was there a vocabulary word that threw you off? That's a clue to what you might need to study or listen for.
Exactly. Predictive listening is like having a mini conversation in your head with the speaker. You're not just a passive receiver, you're interacting with the content.
And if you practice this, soon you'll notice you can follow complex talks or fast speakers much better because your brain is always a step ahead, catching clues.
All right, from predicting the future, let's move to another related strategy, using context clues.
Strategy 5 is using context clues to understand what you missed. This goes hand in hand with predictive listening, but let's break it down.
Using context clues means figuring out the meaning of unknown words or phrases from the surrounding information. Basically, you Sherlock Holmes your way through the sentence.
Exactly. Think of yourself as a detective. If you miss a word, you look for clues in what was said before and after, in the situation, or even in the speaker's tone, to deduce what that word might mean or what's happening.
For example, say you hear, "I brought my umbrella because it was drizzling." Now, imagine you don't know the word umbrella. From context, you heard, "because it was drizzling." Drizzling means raining lightly. So, what do people usually bring when it's raining?
Probably an umbrella. So even if you missed that word, you could guess umbrella, or at least understand, I brought something because it was raining. The context gives you the general idea.
Here's a fun mini dialogue. Let's say,
Ugh, my boss was so irate this morning.
"Oh no, what happened? Why was she so angry?" Now, if you didn't know irate, my response uses the word angry, which basically gives away the meaning. Context clue achieved.
Yes, sometimes the conversation partner will naturally restate the idea in simpler words, as you just did. Or other context clues. Maybe my tone of voice sounded upset, or I sighed. Clues that irate was something negative about my boss.
Context clues aren't just verbal, they can be situational. If you're listening to someone describe a vehicle and they mention wheels, seats, and an engine, you figure out they're talking about a car or some mode of transport, even if the word vehicle was new to you.
For beginners, using context is essential because you won't know every word, and that's okay. Train yourself to keep listening even when a word flies over your head. Don't panic and stop listening. Instead, focus on the words you do understand and the overall situation.
A common beginner mistake is hearing an unknown word and freezing up, thinking, "I didn't get that word, I'm lost." Meanwhile, the speaker has moved on and you miss the next part too. It's like tripping over a pebble because you stopped walking.
Right. Instead, let the unknown word go for a moment and use the rest of the sentence to guess. Often, the meaning will become clear later. And if not, you can always look it up after. But at least you'll keep understanding the general idea.
For intermediate and advanced learners, context clues help with idioms or cultural references too. Like if someone says, "It's raining cats and dogs," and you've never heard that, you might think, "Huh?" But if they then say, "I got completely soaked walking home," you use context to realize raining cats and dogs means raining heavily.
Exactly. English has lots of idiomatic expressions, and context is your best friend for those.
One more tip. Pay attention to tone of voice and facial expressions, if you can see the speaker, like in a video. They often give context. If someone sounds excited and you missed a word, you can infer it's something good. If they sound sad, the missing word was probably something bad or unfortunate.
Good point. Tone can clue you in on whether the news is positive or negative, even if specific words escape you.
So, be a word detective. Use clues from everywhere, other words you understand, the situation, tone, even background sounds, to fill in the blanks in your mind.
And hey, sometimes you'll guess wrong. It's part of learning. I once heard, "We had a blast at the party" when I was a learner and thought something exploded. Because blast I knew as an explosion. But the laughter and happy voices clued me in, but it actually meant they had a lot of fun.
Oh, wow, that's a great example. Context saved the day. Otherwise, you'd think they barely survived a party gone wrong.
Thankfully, I picked up on the right meaning. So trust yourself and the context. You know more than you think.
All right, on to our next strategy. What do we have for number 6?
Number 6 is learning to listen differently for the gist versus details. In other words, sometimes you listen for the big picture, and other times you listen for the tiny pieces of information. Both are important skills.
Think of it like using a camera. Sometimes you want the wide-angle shot, that's the gist, and sometimes you zoom in on a specific object. That's details.
Exactly. Listening for gist means you're trying to get the general understanding of what's being said without worrying about every single word. This is especially useful on a first listen, or if the audio is above your level. You ask yourself, overall, what are they talking about? What's the main idea or the main story here?
For example, say you're listening to a short news report in English. If you're listening for gist, you focus on understanding the core of the story. Maybe it's about a new policy, an event that happened, or a celebrity doing something funny. You might catch only a few key words like election, new president, 55% of voters, and you deduce, they're talking about election results.
Listening for detail, on the other hand, is when you're trying to catch specific pieces of information, numbers, names, dates, or a particular fact.
This usually comes after you know the gist, or when you have a specific question to answer.
So, with that same news report, once you know it's about an election result, you might listen again for details like what percentage of people voted for the winner, what's the new president's name, which regions had the highest turnout. Those are detail questions.
A practical way to use this strategy, separate your listening into 2 rounds. First, listen to understand the general idea, and don't pause or stress about what you miss.
After that, listen a second time, or a third, to pick up the details you want or to clarify things you weren't sure about.
This approach really helps because it takes the pressure off. You give yourself permission not to catch everything at first.
You focus on understanding the story or conversation in broad strokes. Then you go back and refine your understanding with details.
Yes, and it mirrors real life too. Often, in a first listen, even native speakers don't memorize every detail. They just get the gist.
We often ask, "Wait, what was that date again?" and listen again, or ask again for the detail.
For learners, one trick is to actually write down or say out loud a 1-sentence summary after your first listen.
For example, "Okay, this audio was about a new cafe opening in the city center."
Then, on second listen, aim to catch the cafe's name, opening date, what makes it special, and so on.
Great tip! And if you're in a test situation like TOEFL or IELTS listening, usually you'll know what kind of details you need because of the questions.
So, you get the gist first, then zero in on answers.
But in everyday learning, you can simulate this by making your own questions.
Like, if you're listening to a podcast episode, first get the gist of each section. Then challenge yourself. Can I catch the name of the book they mentioned? Or the 3 reasons they gave for X?
Listen again for those.
This can also highlight any listening weaknesses. If you got the gist, but always miss numbers or names, maybe you need to practice listening to numbers.
Some people struggle with hearing 13 versus 30, for instance, or common names in English.
True. I used to always mix teen numbers versus tens, 14 versus 40, 15 versus 50, until I practiced with audio recordings of numbers. It's a detail thing.
One more thing, when listening for detail, if it's something super important and you didn't catch it, don't be afraid to rewind or ask someone to repeat if you're in a conversation.
It's normal. But do try to hone those ears so you can catch details on the fly over time.
So remember, sometimes zoom out, big picture. Sometimes zoom in, specifics. Both modes of listening are useful.
Mastering switching between them will make you a more effective listener.
Absolutely. All right, on to strategy number 7, which is closely related: repetition and replay. Our 7th strategy is all about the power of repetition, listening to things more than once, and using that rewind button liberally. In short, don't one and done your listening practice. Replaying audio can massively improve comprehension.
I love this one because it's so simple. Just listen again. We kind of hinted at it with gist versus detail, but let's expand. Every time you re-listen to the same piece of English audio, you'll notice you understand a little more. It's like peeling an onion, layer by layer, without the tears.
Sometimes with tears if it's a sad story, but yes. For example, think about your favorite movie or TV show in English. The first time you watched it, maybe you understood, say, 60%. The second time, you already know the plot, so you can pay attention to different things, and maybe you catch 80%. Third time, you're noticing even the jokes or subtle details you missed.
Exactly. Repetition builds familiarity. Your ear starts recognizing phrases that flew by before. Plus, knowing the context from the first listen helps the second listen make more sense.
A good technique is listen, repeat, recall. Listen to an audio once, then pause and see what you recall or understood. Then listen again and see what you missed. You'll often realize that some parts that sounded like gibberish the first time are clearer the second time.
I actually do this with podcasts in Spanish. The first time, I might not catch a particular phrase, but when I replay, I'm like, oh, that's what they said. It's a satisfying feeling, like solving a little puzzle.
And if there's a part you really can't catch, don't be afraid to rewind and play that snippet a few times. Sometimes hearing that 5-second segment 3 or 4 times, maybe slowing it down, suddenly your brain clicks and you hear the word correctly.
Also, many apps and players let you slow down the audio to 0.5x or 0.75x. It might sound a bit funny, but it can help with really fast talkers. Then you can gradually increase the speed as you get comfortable.
And repetition doesn't have to be back-to-back like a broken record. You could listen to something today, then again tomorrow or next week. Spaced repetition works for listening too.
Revisiting an old audio after some time can reinforce what you learned and show you how much more you understand now.
Oh, quick story. I once listened to a comedy podcast and totally missed the punchline of a joke because they spoke so fast. I laughed along like, ha, feeling clueless. Later, I replayed that bit, slowed it down, and finally got the joke. I literally laughed out loud alone in my car when it finally clicked.
That's the best, when you catch it and it becomes genuinely funny. And hey, that's motivating. It made you want to listen more, right?
Definitely. I didn't mind listening multiple times because the content was enjoyable. That's another point. Choose interesting stuff to listen to, more on that soon, so that repetition isn't boring.
Good segue, Jake. But just to wrap up repetition, make it a habit to listen at least twice to your practice materials. The first round is for familiarity, the second or third is for depth. Each pass, you'll pick up something new, like layers of a painting becoming clearer.
And gradually, you'll need fewer replays to understand. That's the progress happening. All right, shall we talk about that interesting content part?
Yes, that'll be covered in Strategy 9. But before that, let's cover one more active listening method: note-taking and summarizing.
Strategy 8 is note-taking and summarizing, turning your listening practice into an active output exercise. Now, this might sound like homework, but it can actually be pretty engaging and very effective.
Basically, after or during listening, you write down key points or a summary of what you heard. It forces you to process and remember the information. And if you missed something, you'll realize it when you try to summarize, which is great feedback for what to improve.
Exactly. For example, suppose you just listened to a 5-minute English news podcast. Now challenge yourself. Write a short summary of it in English. It could even be a few bullet points. Or, if writing feels too slow, just pause and say out loud what the story was about in your own words.
This does a few things. 1, it checks your understanding. Can you accurately describe what you heard? 2, it highlights any gaps. Maybe you realize, I don't actually know why the guy went to jail in the story. I missed that detail, so you can listen again for that. 3, it helps transfer new words or phrases from short-term to long-term memory because you're actively using them.
When I was training in French, I used to keep a little listening journal. I'd listen to a short radio piece, then jot down the date, the topic, a few new words I heard, and a couple of sentences. It was satisfying to look back and see my notes become more detailed over time, as my listening improved.
That's a great idea. And note-taking doesn't have to be full sentences, if that's too hard at first. You can jot down key words while listening. Like if you're listening to a lecture or TED Talk, maybe you write down climate change, 2 degrees, policy, renewable energy to help you remember the key points.
Exactly. Whatever helps you capture the info. Some people draw little mind maps or doodles associated with what they heard. That's fine too. It's your notes. No one else has to read them, so do what works for you.
Also, if you're in a situation where you can't take notes, like listening while driving or walking, you can do a mental summary or record a voice memo for yourself afterwards. Even thinking through the summary in your head is better than nothing.
For advanced learners, summarizing can be in English to practice output or even in your native language if your goal is purely comprehension. But I recommend trying in English because it practices paraphrasing skills too.
Here's a fun practice idea. After watching an English movie or episode, try giving your friend a recap in English. Or even talk to yourself if no one's around. Pretend you're doing a short review of it. It's casual, and you might even use some of the phrases you picked up.
Yes, Jake and I actually do that sometimes with shows we both watch. We'll chat about it in English, effectively summarizing parts of it and reacting. It definitely helps reinforce what we heard.
And don't worry if your summary isn't perfect. The goal isn't to write a school essay, it's just to engage with the material. If you realized you couldn't summarize it at all, that's a sign it was too hard, or you need to re-listen with a different strategy. Maybe you need subtitles, or to chunk it out.
One more angle, note-taking during listening. If you're doing a longer listen, like a 30-minute podcast or lecture, practice scribbling quick notes as you listen in real time. This can train you to pick out key words on the fly. It's challenging, but useful, especially for academic listening.
True. Start with something shorter, like a 5-minute segment, and see if you can catch the main points in notes. Over time, you'll get better at writing one thing while still hearing the next thing, a skill that really helps in meetings or classes in English.
Great! Summarizing and note-taking might sound like extra work, but they do wonders for solidifying your listening comprehension. Give it a try, even just once a week, with a podcast episode or news report.
All right, now let's move to a more fun strategy, one that keeps you interested and prevents boredom. Strategy 9, mix it up and have fun with your listening practice. In other words, variety is your friend. Don't just listen to one kind of material. Explore different types of content and find things you genuinely enjoy.
Yes! If you enjoy what you're listening to, you'll be more engaged, and you'll naturally pay closer attention.
And you'll stick with it longer. So if you love music, use music. If you love sports, find sports commentary or podcasts. If you're into cooking, watch recipe videos in English. There's something for everyone.
Also, variety in formats and accents is great, especially as you get more confident.
Try podcasts, YouTube videos, TV shows, movies, audiobooks, radio, even TikTok videos of people speaking English. Each format can train your ear in different ways.
For example, podcasts and audiobooks are purely audio, so they force you to rely 100% on listening.
Great training. TV shows or YouTube might give you visuals and body language cues. Songs help you catch words in a rhythmic context. Mixing them keeps your brain on its toes.
And accents, don't be afraid of different English accents once you have the basics down.
English is spoken in so many ways: American, British, Australian, Canadian, Indian, and more. The more varieties you listen to, the more adaptable your ear becomes. Start with a clear accent that you find easiest, then branch out.
I remember the first time I watched a British period drama, I had to really concentrate because I was used to American accents. But after a few episodes, it got easier. Then Australian English threw me for a loop for a bit. Now it's actually fun to identify where an accent is from.
Yeah, at first it might be tough, but then it becomes like a superpower. Oh, I can understand this Scottish YouTuber now. It feels rewarding.
Another aspect of variety is topics. Listening to a wide range of topics will expose you to different vocabulary. Don't just stick to one subject. If you always listen to, say, tech podcasts, you'll be great with tech terms, but maybe struggle if someone starts talking about cooking. So mix topics: news, everyday conversations, academic talks, casual chats.
Also, include some just for fun listening. Everything doesn't have to be study. Watching a comedy show or YouTuber you like in English totally counts as listening practice. Even if you don't understand every joke, you're still training your ear and enjoying yourself.
Exactly. Enjoyment matters. Because listening practice isn't just a one-day thing, it's ongoing. So if you hate what you're listening to, you won't keep it up. Find content that makes you forget you're practicing English at all.
One thing I did was follow English-speaking influencers and content creators on social media. So when I scrolled Instagram or TikTok, I'd naturally encounter English content about topics I like: travel, comedy, science facts, whatever. Those bite-sized videos can be great casual listening practice.
Great idea! And those often come with subtitles too, which can help, as we discussed earlier.
Just be careful to balance it. If you only listen to, say, one YouTuber who talks in a very particular way, you might get used to just that style. That's why we say mix it up.
Yes, diversify your listening diet. It's like nutrition. A balanced diet makes a healthy listener.
And if you find something too hard or boring, drop it and try something else. There's no rule that you must finish a podcast episode if you're not enjoying it, or it's way over your head. Keep it challenging, but not overwhelming, and definitely fun.
Couldn't agree more. Now we've got one last strategy, which ties everything together. Last, but absolutely not least, strategy 10 is consistent practice and patience. This is more of a mindset and approach than a technique, but it's crucial for success in improving your listening.
We couldn't end without this one. The truth is, getting better at listening in English or any language takes time and regular practice. There's no magic overnight fix. But the good news is, every little bit of practice adds up, and you will see improvement if you stick with it.
Exactly. Consistency means, for example, setting aside a bit of time each day, or several times a week, for focused listening practice. It doesn't have to be long. Even 15-20 minutes a day can be more effective than a 3-hour binge once a month.
Kind of like exercise. Better to do a little jog every day than run a marathon once in a blue moon and then collapse. Your listening muscle grows with regular workouts.
And along with consistency comes patience. In the beginning, it might feel like you're not catching much. But if you compare your understanding after, say, 3 months of steady practice to when you started, you'll likely notice a big difference.
Celebrate those small victories. Maybe today you understood an entire song chorus without looking up the lyrics. That's awesome! Or you watched a short video and got the joke without subtitles. High five! Those little milestones show you that you're improving.
Also, don't be discouraged by bad listening days. We all have days when our brain is tired or the speaker is unusually hard to understand. It doesn't mean you're failing. Just take a break and come back later.
Yes, I still sometimes listen to something and think, what on earth did they just say? Especially if it's a heavy accent or noisy background. It happens. Instead of letting it frustrate you, use it as motivation to keep practicing.
Another part of patience is being kind to yourself. Don't expect to understand 100% of everything, even at advanced levels. Native speakers don't catch everything either, believe it or not. We ask pardon or could you repeat that too?
That's so true. How many times have I asked my English-speaking friends, what was that name, when listening to a story? Plenty.
So be patient and persistent. Make listening a habit, like while you have your morning coffee, or during your commute, or in the evening winding down. And stick with it.
One idea, keep a little log of your practice. Noting down dates and what you listen to can show you how consistent you've been, and maybe rate how much you understood. Over time, you'll see those ratings go up, which feels great.
Ultimately, improvement in listening is a gradual climb, but each of the strategies we discussed will speed up that journey. And consistent practice is the glue that holds all those strategies together.
Well said. So folks, remember, a little listening every day, try different strategies, and be patient with yourself. You'll get there, step by step.
And with that, we've covered all 10 strategies. What do you say we wrap up and remind everyone of what we went through?
Good idea.
So, let's quickly recap the listening strategies we discussed today. We started with chunking, breaking speech into phrases. Then shadowing, repeating what you hear to sharpen your ear. Using subtitles or transcripts wisely. Predictive listening, anticipating what comes next. And using context clues, deducing meaning from situation and surrounding words.
Then we talked about listening for gist versus detail, big picture first, details second. The power of repetition and replaying audio, note-taking and summarizing to engage actively with what you hear, variety and fun content to keep yourself interested and expose your ears to different sounds. And finally, consistent practice with patience, because improvement takes time, but it does happen.
Wow, we really packed a lot in this episode. I hope you all found these strategies useful and maybe had a laugh or two along the way.
Remember, you don't have to implement all 10 strategies at once. Try a couple that sound fun to you. Maybe this week, experiment with shadowing a YouTube video and using subtitles for a tough TV show. Next week, try note-taking on a podcast, step by step.
Exactly. And let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear about your experiences. If you have any cool listening tips of your own, or funny stories, like misunderstanding lyrics like Jake did, share them with us.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review or a comment. We love hearing from you.
Thanks so much for listening to the English Phrases Hub podcast. We love having you spend time with us to improve your English.
Until next time, keep practicing those listening skills and remember to have fun with it.
You've got this. Happy listening, everyone, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.